Welcome to SIX's live summit today. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, SIX's CEO and founder, Daniel Barantkin. Daniel's going to be leading a workshop today, and after that, we're going to be accepting questions. So just as a reminder to everyone in the audience, if you would like to participate in that Q&A, feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A chat found on the right-hand side of your screen at any time during today's event. As always, the summit is being recorded, so it'll be available to watch on six.com in the coming days, so look out for that if you want to refresh. Without further ado, Daniel, I'd like to pass things over to you so that you can get us started.
It's my great pleasure to speak to you today about how to use 6 AI to turn investors into shareholders. The goal of this conversation is really to be as helpful as possible. And so the structure of it is I'm going to start with a full end-to-end use case of how you can use 6 AI today in your own individual workflows. And then I'd love to open it up to you guys so that if there's any questions you have or any use cases that you want to try to imagine, we can actually try it live together on the demo. I can't promise that everything's going to work perfectly, but I can promise that you can access everything today. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and publish inside of our chat a link to 6 AI. You can access it through 2 ways, either by typing 6.ai or by going to ai.6.com. This is fully developed, you're able to use it, it's reliable, and hopefully by the end of this conversation, you'll have a lot of different unique ways of thinking around what you can do with it. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and, in fact, share my screen. So this is what you should see if you go to 6 AI, and it's also accessible from mobile. What I want to highlight is that we built the tool so that you can actually use it without even logging in. So for instance, if you go incognito to ai.6.com, you'll still see the same screen. The way you'll know if you're logged in is right here in the top right-hand corner, you'll see your icon or your profile picture. If it's an icon, it means you're not logged in, but you can still use the tool. If you see your profile picture, it means you are logged in. By being logged in, you'll have access to a lot of advanced features, including things like the ability to share conversations, as well as you'll get early access to features. And I'll go through all of that stuff probably at the end of the presentation. So let's begin. So you're an investor relation professional. And for this use case, I'm actually going to imagine us in the role of EV Nickel. So here we have a particular company in the metals and mining space. They have their corporate presentation and their fact sheet. And in this use case, I want us to begin by imagining that we want to pitch going to a particular conference. In this case, I'm going to start by pitching that we go to the BMO Global Metals and Mining Conference. So I'm going to go into 6 AI. And I'm going to instruct it to write a memo to my CEO on why we should attend the BMO Global Metals and Mining and Critical Minerals Conference. I've then enclosed my corporate fact sheet. The way I've done that was just by going onto the website, going onto the corporate fact sheet, and pressing Control-Alt, and then just going ahead and copying the content. And so that's the content that I've now put here inside. I'm going to go ahead and press Enter. And just like that, 6 AI is writing a memo to the CEO recommending that we attend this conference. And so here you can see the beginnings of this memo where the subject is attendance at BMO Global Metals, Mining and Critical Minerals Conference. Dear such and such, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to recommend our company's attendance at this upcoming BMO Global Metals and Mining and Critical Minerals Conference. The event presents a valuable opportunity for us to showcase our unique strengths and capabilities, as well as to network with potential investors and industry partners. Our company's focus on nickel, EV batteries, and low-carbon mining aligns well with the themes of this conference. As a key player in the clean energy transition, our participation in this event can help raise our profile and attract interest from investors and other stakeholders. The Shaw Dome project in Ontario, Canada is an excellent example of our commitment to clean and sustainable mining practices, our 2-track strategy for development, and so on and so on. So what you can see here is that right now, 6 is taking the context of the BMO Global Metals and Mining Conference, as well as the conference now of the most recent corporate presentation that I've just copied and pasted, and actually synthesizing that information into something that is actionable. But this is just the beginning. Let's say that as I'm putting together this memo, my job isn't just to suggest we go somewhere, but to actually plan out all aspects of that event. And so one thing that I might be tasked with doing is determining what institutional investors we should actually reach out to prior to attending that conference And so in this case, you can see that the prompt I provided is that while we're in Hollywood, Florida, what institutional investors should we meet? In particular, I want to meet with institutional investors based in or near Hollywood that invest in the private placements of a sub 1 billion market cap company. Just as a quick note before I proceed, everything that I'm discussing here is a fictional example, so this is not anything related to this company in particular. All of this is just theoretical to show the use and demonstration of 6AI. With that, I'm going to go ahead and press enter and see what investors might be worthwhile to meet while in Hollywood, Florida. So right over here, it's going to factor in the information, and it's going to actually update the email that I initially wanted to write to my CEO, now factoring in this information over here. So just to speed things up, I'm going to go ahead and actually open this up in another tab. We'll come back to this later, and I'm going to just ask it this singular request. So just like that, here we can see a few different institutional investors that 6AI is recommending that we may want to reach out and have a discussion with. And so in this case, it's factoring in both my specific criteria, which is that I want them to invest in private placements of sub $1 billion market cap companies, and it's factoring in the location, in this case, in Hollywood, Florida. And so here we can see already investor targeting that's being performed directly by 6AI that can assist you as an investor relation professional as you think about who might be worth reaching out to. And it also factors in and gives information about their website, where they're located, and so on and so forth. Now, as we continue, one of the things that I might experience as an investor relation professional is that this might be the first time I'm attending this conference. And so one question that I might ask 6AI is, where specifically is the conference being held? I know that's in Hollywood, Florida, but what is the actual venue? And in particular, what spaces near the venue would be good to host private meetings before, during, and after the event? And my criteria is that I want the ambiance to be quiet, professional, and welcoming. So I'm going to go ahead and ask 6AI, and right over here, so this right over here, it can provide some updates. Right now, just as a note, 6AI is not connected to the internet. So as a result, you're going to get some minor errors and discrepancies as we go through the process. And in the future weeks, we're going to have it connected to the internet, so it's featuring real-time data. In terms of the conference itself, I happen to know that it's being held at the Diplomat. So I'm going to rephrase the question to 6AI. And this is a great example of the collaboration that, as an IR professional, we encourage you to have with 6AI. Definitely double check and fact check everything that it outputs. But knowing what I know, I'm going to update the question to, what are some locations near the Diplomat in Hollywood, Florida, that would be good to meet with investors in a quiet, professional setting? And so just by rephrasing the question, I'm able to then get the output that I'm expecting. So in this case, it's providing me with some information and insights where, despite me never having perhaps gone to Hollywood, Florida, I can already get some insights around where I can actually have these investor meetings. And so right over here, we can see some of the output that it's providing. And so all of this is designed to dramatically accelerate the workflows and the time to value that investor relation professionals get by using 6AI as they're planning out various different activities, such as the conferences to attend, the meeting places to book, and so on and so forth. Continuing with this use case, I'm going to also go ahead, and once this is complete, I'm going to then ask, what are some good locations in Hollywood, Florida for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I'm looking for something that's going to set the right tone for the conference, and that also could use to impress investors. I'm just going to add in Hollywood, Florida, near the Diplomat. So just like that, it's providing some recommendations and insights around breakfast, lunch, and dinner spots. Now, another thing that I might want to do, and here you can see as it continues to output this, and I'll ask another question. And this time around, I'm going to ask it to write a press release in our style announcing our fictional attendance at the BMO Global Metals and Mining Critical Minerals Conference. And what I'm actually going to do in this instruction is enclose our latest press release so that it has a sense of our writing style. So in this case, I just went over here, went into news, and took one of the recent press releases. And so I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And just like that, 6AI is writing the press release for you. So here we can see the title, EV Nickel to attend BMO Global Metals, Mining and Critical Minerals Conference. We know that the style of the press releases that EV Nickel tends to have includes some bullet points where the important information is right at the top before the Toronto, Ontario, and so forth. And so here we can see that style mirrored over here. We can then see the contents of the press release itself, including some information that we have from the earlier conversations and pre-existing database that 6AI currently has access to. And it's writing the press release using the syntax, using the grammar, and using the style that the previous press release suggests that this next press release ought to have. As we continue, we can go ahead and actually ask 6AI to create a memo. So we'll say, create a one-page memo for my CEO about why we should attend the BMO Metals and Mining Critical Minerals Conference, highlighting the potential institutional investors we could pre-arrange meetings with. And I'm going to go ahead to one of the earlier conversations that I had over here. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste these investors that were recommended and highlighted by 6AI. So I'm going to paste that over here so you can see that. And I'm going to press enter. And so just like that, it's factoring in the information around why we should attend, in this case, speaking to the CEO, why I recommend that we should attend this conference. And very soon, it's going to actually highlight the different potential investors that 6AI had already done through investor targeting a moment earlier. And so here we can see that right over here. And so the intention of 6AI is very much as a supporting toolkit that you can add to your tool belt to make the entire process of going from nothing to something much, much more rapid. And so we recommend it as a tool to create the early drafts of writings that you're creating, of emails that you're writing, of things of that nature, and then working back and forth, both with the AI as well as with editing in a Google document or something of that sort, to go and make the experience and the outcome exactly what you need it to be. So we're going to continue, and one of the things that I'm going to highlight here is I'm going to say something like my company. So I'm going to go ahead and just very quickly copy and paste the about section here from the press release. We'll be attending Metals and Mining Conference in Hollywood, Florida. Please create a social media post that can let people know that we will be attending, along with a short blurb that we can include in our email newsblast. So just like that, 6AI is creating the social media post right over here. And very soon we're then going to see that short blurb that it's creating. And so moving back and forth in this collaborative manner with 6AI can dramatically accelerate workflows from everything from identifying potential conferences to attend, identifying the different investors that might be in those cities or in those areas that are near the conference, identifying the different coffee shops and areas where subsequently you can have individual meetings with, and all the way through to creating the social media posts and creating various other content. You can also use it to create things like panels. So I'm going to say, I want to create a series of panels titled On the Road to the BMO Metals and Mining Conference, and featuring Evie Nickel and guests. Evie Nickel, and here I'm going to post the description for Evie Nickel that I posted earlier. And I'm going to say that I can host on using events.six.com. And so just like that, I can collaborate directly with 6AI. And in this case, it's coming up with different events that can even be hosted using events.six.com or 6 events, along with a very brief agenda item for it. And as we go back and forth, we can, of course, make the agenda item and the title and so forth exactly what we need it to be. And so the conclusion of this presentation with 6AI is that as an investor relations professional, you now have a free tool that is flexible, that is scalable, called 6AI, that you can use to help you write press releases, that you can use to help plan trips and different events that you're going to, that you can use to write emails, memos, all these various different aspects of your workflow, and you can use it today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share and actually open it up to a broader conversation. So folks, what do you think?
And just as a reminder to everyone in the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them on the right-hand side in the Q&A. While we wait for anyone in the audience, Dan, I'd like to hear from you what you find to be the most interesting, or what's the best use case in your mind with this?
I find that with 6AI, the way that I find using it is very much as a learning and educational tool. So oftentimes when I don't have knowledge about the world that would otherwise be helpful or useful to me, that's typically where I find the greatest utility from 6AI. So for example, if I'm going to a conference or somewhere that I haven't been to previously, I can go and ask for locations or ask for details. And as I go through that process, I can feed it the specific feedback and questions and so forth that I have. And from that, work with it to really identify the places I should go. I've also used it very often writing applications, writing messages, writing emails, and all of it dramatically accelerates my workflow. Make no mistake that this is just a technology and it's only as good as you use it, and it will make errors. But the rate of errors that it makes is dramatically decreasing, and the rate of helpfulness is dramatically increasing. And the result of those two combinations means that it's a tool certainly worth using today, and especially since we are offering it to all of our existing customers and right now to the broader world entirely for free. It's something that we strongly recommend becoming familiar with.
All right, great. Brittany wants to know if there's any plans to connect 6AI to the internet so that its information base is going to be current.
Exactly. So that's one of the updates that we hope to have for you actually in May. So every quarter, 6 does one major product launch. Our product launch, I believe, is May 13th, if I'm not mistaken. Cam, I think you might know the exact date. And that's when we're going to be announcing the full integration. Right now, this is the earliest version of 6AI, but because it's already so good and so useful, it's something that we wanted to share more broadly.
Absolutely. Peter Krauth wants to know what makes 6AI different from using ChatGPT.
That's a wonderful question. So there's a number of different aspects. The first thing is that it's available to everyone today, and you can access it from mobile. So for those of you that might have used ChatGPT in the past, one of the limitations it has is it's a really bad mobile experience. It's not something they can very easily access. And so that's one of the big differences. The second aspect is that you're more easily able to share conversations. And so right now, if you had a wonderful conversation going back and forth about a conference or about creating a press release, and you wanted to share that with a colleague or friend, using 6, you can actually very quickly print very soon. I think next week we're launching this release. We'll have a PDF of the entire conversation. Today, you can actually send the entire thread to any other email, whether it's your own or someone else's. And so the sharing functionality is very powerful. What we expect is that today, as a starting point, we have all the functionality that ChatGPT does. So if you're considering them just one or the other, it's exactly the same. What's the difference, however, is that as we develop this, ChatGPT has to be a horizontal tool that works for every use case. 6AI is specifically built for the capital markets use case. And so over time, you're going to see unique data sets that we integrate, like from the capital markets. You're going to see a lot of interconnectivity with existing tools like 6ads, 6events, and so forth. And the result of that is that as an investor relation tool, it's going to be something that's far superior.
Awesome, great. Ryan has a question about if it's powered by OpenAI's API.
Yeah, so the way we built 6AI is to be very modular. So right now, the best API on the market is GPT-4. Today, we are using GPT-4. What we expect is that the AI level is going to be kind of like the infrastructure commodity level. There's a lot of different groups like Cohere and a number of others that are competing. Bard out of Google, for example, recently has made some significant inroads. And so the way that we built 6AI is that as we continue to develop it, and as the general artificial intelligence technology stacks continues to develop, we're going to be connecting it to the latest and greatest. And then the feature set that makes it specific to the investor relations and capital market space, that's going to be something that we continue to innovate and continue to make even more improvements upon.
Cool. Vladimir wants to know, and he indicates that he may have missed the part where you were talking about how you can tie a previous answer to the next question. But just a general question about if it tracks your session or user's session, or if people have to retype their requests into new tabs accordingly.
So you're going to find that as you use 6AI, you're going to have different workflows that you prefer. Typically, what I find is that if the messages are getting too long, because it's factoring in the entire context of the entire chat, I like to open up a new tab just for it to be faster. So for instance, in this demonstration, just for speed, I opened up multiple tabs. What you'll find is that very much you can have the same continued thread within one singular conversation. And that's how we recommend how to use the product.
Awesome. Emmerich wants to know if there are any plans to create a sort of prompt library that commonly apply to IR professionals just to help people get started.
Precisely. So that's one of the things that's going to be launched way before May 13th during the product launch. I think the prompt library is that's probably going to come out either next week or very soon after.
Great. Giuseppe wants to know, is this kind of technology eventually going to replace employees, or is it something that's going to just improve their workflow?
I think what we're seeing is that the rate of technological change is very, very fast. And there's going to be a bifurcation between people that are able to jump onto these trends and begin leveraging it to become 10x or 100x more efficient, and everyone else. And so very likely what we're going to see in the marketplace are people and employees that are AI enabled, and as a result, able to be more effective and more productive than ever before. And that chasm between those that are AI enabled against those who are not is going to result in different prioritizations that employers have around who they promote and the positions that those people yield. I don't believe that AI is going to fully replace individuals. So there has been some very exciting developments about fully autonomous agents and things of that sort. I view that as we've already invented that. That's what API calls or things of that sort. These are just much more advanced API calls. But a lot of the aspects of what individuals do today can be dramatically augmented by AI. And those that learn to use it, including tools like 6AI, are going to be in a much better position than those that are slow to the adoption curve.
Great. Brittany wants to know, what's the cost model for 6AI?
So right now we're giving everything totally away for free. And so it's zero monetization. We're prioritizing existing customers, but this is ultimately a tool that we think everyone should benefit from and use. Over time, we intend to develop specific features that will have different entry points and exit points. So for instance, different premium features, Teams features, things of that sort. But there will always be a free-based version. So if you learn how to use 6AI, it will never be taken away from you. So we strongly recommend you learn how to use it.
Fair enough. Daniela wants to know if you have any tips on how to write your prompts best in order to get the most effective answers.
Think through as though you're talking to a recent graduate, where they know a lot about the world, but they don't know exactly what you're thinking. And so the more information that you can provide them with context, the better. The more specific you can be. So for example, in my case earlier, I asked about institutional investors that invest in metals and mining in sub $1 billion market cap companies through private placements. And the reason that I was that specific is to de-risk the likelihood that I would get a result of a fund or a group that only invests, let's say, in ETFs or index funds that happen to have mining companies. And so the more specific and structured you can be with the request, typically the better. I'm proud to share that today 6AI is fully typo tolerant. So you can make as many typos as you want. That won't matter. That will be fine. But it does need to know what you're thinking. And so to the extent that you can share what exactly you want, the better.
Right. Adrian wants to know, are there ways for a company to get automatic feedback from the system so that a user can see what's working best? And how do users measure how successful the system is?
That's a fantastic question. Right now, it's really based on the eye of the beholder. So I've been rolling this out very slowly to many of my friends, my colleagues, people within Six. Myself, of course, I've been using it. And what you'll find is that you'll know if it's making your workflow better. So far, every single person that's used 6AI has dramatically benefited from it, saying it's one of their favorite tools, and they use it on a daily basis. We've actually seen in our analytics that people that start using it end up using it a lot. And so if for whatever reason you're using it and you find that it's not giving you the output you want, I'd actually recommend send me an email. I'll happily do some hands-on training. And for anyone that is an existing customer or prospective or anyone that really just wants to meet with me, I've begun doing a lot of one-on-one sessions as well. Really the magic I find with 6AI is when you can find your particular use case. So think about something that you're actually trying to do a priori to Six. So you need to get it done. That's the job that you have. And then building out some thinking and workflows around how you can use 6AI. And what you'll find is that most things will end up transitioning to using 6AI as something that you can augment as a tool.
All right, well, Dan, I mean, that was a very fast and fluid Q&A session. I want to thank you for, not only going through this great workshop, but also, engaging with the audience. I want to thank the audience too for these great questions that we've had. But Dan, that looks like it's it for today. So before we wrap up, I want to pass things back to you if there's any closing remarks or any highlights that you want to reiterate.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, everything that we build is for you. And so the more feedback you provide, the more insights you can share about what you need it to do and how you want it to be built, the more we can factor that into our roadmap. We've been releasing pretty significant updates on a weekly cadence, and then we have one big update every 2 weeks. And so certainly start using 6AI now, use it into the future, and you're going to see a lot of greater functionality and powers that really make it a useful addition to your utility belt.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. With that signifies the end of today's session. So I hope you, Daniel, and everyone in our audience has a good rest of the day. Cheers.